All right, happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome into AL.com Recruiting, show number 28, brought to you by Southern Orthopedic Surgeons, here for the athlete in all of us. He's Ben Thomas with AL.com. I'm Simone Eli. Ben, we got another stacked show. I know you're pumped up about the Braves. Can you even stand to talk about anything other than the Braves right now?
I'm going to try and put it aside, Simone, for our show. What show is this? What number show do we have
28.
here?
It's the 28th show, Ben.
28. I'll try and put it aside for 30 minutes or so.
We're going to try. We're going to try. I know there's a lot of happy Braves fans all throughout the state. But, guys, we're talking recruiting today. We've got a stacked show. It's the first week of the high school football playoffs. And a lot of key matchups that we're going to get to, as well as some big-time recruiting news all throughout the state. But before we do that, we want to introduce the one and only Nick Alvarez. He is the new recruiting reporter with AL.com. He joins us live now on the show on AL.com Recruiting. Nick, good Wednesday to you. How are you doing?
Yeah, no, guys, thanks for having me on. And I'm doing all right. I am excited. It's the first week of playoff football. How can you not be looking forward to Friday nights and everything getting kicked off? And yeah, no, I'm excited to highlight some of the big talents across the state.
Absolutely. Nick, I know that you are very new to AL.com. How new are you to this state? Give us a little bit of your background and what it is that you've done in the past, where you're from.
Yeah, so I graduated from Syracuse during the pandemic via Zoom, came down to Montgomery to cover preps. I was called a Yankee a few times for being up north, not just because I'm a Yankee fan. Congrats to you, Ben, by the way. You're great.
Appreciate that.
So yeah, and then I was in Montgomery for about a year, and my first day with AL.com was Monday. So I'm about a year in the state, and then I just moved up to Birmingham. So I'm still again situated up here.
Sweet.
Well, welcome to the team, Nick. We're glad to have you, man. I think there's a lot we can do, as we talked about, for recruiting, that we want to really pump up our coverage on AL.com. Talk about you came down from a different area, and you were in Montgomery, where they have a lot of great athletes. Talk about what type of athletes in the state you've seen compared to maybe where you were before.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a football standpoint, coming to last year was seeing kind of a few just really, really interesting kids, kind of local and then kind of statewide. I mean, I have a few memories of Kool-Aid last year from just watching him in the Super 7, and then for the North-South All-Star game, I think he had like 2 interceptions or something like that. Just kind of like seeing him show out. Basketball season's right around the corner. I was able to see J.D. Davison a few times in Calhoun. Then we were there when the Sports Art Association was presenting him with his Player of the Year award, which is great, and to kind of see that community come together. And the football context this year, I mean, I've just kind of been in awe of kind of all the talent that the region seems to have from across divisions. Like, I mean, seeing Jeremiah Cobb and Montgomery Catholic a little bit in 3A just kind of run all over people. And then as we kind of progress, I mean, I was able to see Auburn and Prattville a few weeks ago and see their trio of Auburn recruits that they're just able to kind of just dominate a game. It's been really exciting to kind of see. And as the playoffs get on, it's gonna be interesting to see where the Pike Roads, where the Thompsons, kind of where those big schools end up.
If you're just tuning in, we are chatting with Nick Alvarez, the new recruiting reporter for AL.com. Nick, what exactly is your role when it comes to day-to-day things, coverage, events that you'll be covering? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I'll be, like, my title, I guess, like the Auburn and Alabama recruiting reporter. So if, the Crimson Tide or the Tigers are interested in you, I'm going to be kind of following you on Twitter, seeing what you're able to put together on Friday nights or football and then during basketball season. So that applies to kids in state and then also kids out of state, as Alabama and Auburn both continue to kind of widen their nets and seeing kind of where they can kind of pull in talent from. I'm going to be kind of looking at that. And then also it's kind of really interesting kind of recruiting trends statewide, kind of the stuff that maybe people might see on the sidelines on a Friday night, or, oh, that coach looks familiar. Why is he around? Kind of take some behind the scenes looks and be able to explain to people how interesting recruiting is, which, as we all know, it's kind of fascinating how kids kind of end up at their next step.
No question.
Yeah, I mean, we're fired up. I mean, I can't credit John Talty and Izzy Gould enough. I mean, Izzy has talked about adding a recruiting writer and focusing on that for a long time. And of course, I'll still be doing recruiting as well. But I think one thing we want to do, Simone, is really increase our out-of-state coverage as well. Guys that Auburn and Alabama are interested in, from Georgia or Alabama, so national recruiting wise, those type things where we've kind of maybe missed out on that a little bit. I think Nick can help us out on that as well as in-state coverage as well. Don't you feel like, Nick?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, I think, people have a lot of different paths to when they come here and, make a name for themselves, and kind of finding what that athlete does on the field that makes them so successful, and also the off the field stuff that kind of gets into why they work so hard, or kind of what drives them is, the stories we all care about, and makes those Friday nights and the Saturday afternoons so much more entertaining. So, I mean, my goal is, in-state and out-state, kind of, try to put that together and, kind of show some people some real interesting stories and tidbits, and, track the things we all care about.
Now we're no rest for the weary, Nick. We're throwing you into the fire this week. You're on the Gold Standard AL.com recruiting show right now, and then on Friday you're going to go see Thompson and Florence, which should be a good game. What are you looking forward to there?
I mean, I think if you talk about kind of Thompson and you don't start with kind of Jeremiah Alexander, I feel like that's kind of where the conversation really begins. He's just kind of been kind of a wrecking ball this year, and I'm really excited to see him in person. And get a chance at that. Trayvon Fagans, I mean, he kind of was in the news a few weeks back, and just kind of seeing kind of what a playoff push looks like for them, because I feel like that's another thing that kind of hangs around for recruits, during the years, like where are they going to end up? Where is that decision going to lead? Where for playoff time, it's it's a lot easier to focus on the Friday night or that one game, to kind of see what these athletes can kind of do at their best, and catch some exciting football.
Hey, kind of transitioning from that, Nick, one thing we wanted to talk about was, I think as we've seen Mr. Football, we have Mr. Football, which is the state's top award. You're a member of the Alabama Sports Writers Association, have voted on that in the past. And in the playoffs, that's kind of a proving ground for these, not only these top recruits, but top players in our state. And you're going to go to Thompson. The status of Connor Harrell is kind of up and down. He got injured. In my mind, he was probably one of the favorites for Mr. Football. Any guys particularly you're looking forward to seeing in the playoffs that you think maybe could be Mr. Football this year? Obviously, JaQuincy McKinstry, as you mentioned earlier, won Mr. Football last year largely on the basis that he had a huge playoff run. I mean, we all knew he was a great player, but clearly by the end of the postseason, he was the best player. Who are you looking forward to seeing? Who do you think has a shot at it this year?
I think there are – I think I like the point you make that the playoffs are really a good proving ground for this, because there are so many kind of teams right now that are kind of just battling it out. And I think we've seen throughout the season this year, that's kind of hard to get like, oh, maybe here's the number one team for this division. For specific guys, I'm partial to defense. I like kind of seeing a good kind of a wrecking ball kind of come in. So, I mean, Jeremiah Alexander, I mentioned him before. Curtis Perry down in Pike Road has had a really good year, and he's kind of come into his own the past month or two. I mean, I mentioned Jeremiah Cobb earlier, and 3A for running back wise, he's just been week in and week out, kind of been untackleable. That's not a word, but he's been really, really hard to break down. And kind of going large routes statewide. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Emmanuel Henderson has had a really, really strong season. I think, I can see the playoffs kind of really being a good differentiator for kind of myself and maybe some of the other voters.
Good stuff. Well, you certainly get a treat this week and seeing the Florence and Thompson game. Nick Alvarez, we appreciate your time. The new AL.com recruiting reporter, writer for Alabama and Auburn. We're looking forward to seeing your work and appreciate you taking time today.
Yeah, no, thanks you guys for having me on, and I'll be back to my more comfortable role of watching you guys.
Well, you might become a regular guest, Nick, so you gotta get ready, man.
Yeah. I might have to.
But we're glad to have you and looking forward to seeing those stories get cranked out.
Yeah, no, of course. Really looking forward to it, guys. Thank you again.
All right, thanks.
All right, Nick, thanks so much, Ben. We're just talking about the Mr. Football race kind of being wide open, it feels like. I think that you brought up a great point a second ago to Nick, that the playoffs really, if it's a close race, it kind of separates the who's who when it comes to who can take a next step up in this. I'm not a writer. I don't get to vote on this. So I'm going to prefer or let you kind of talk about what you have going on and what you're looking at in terms of guys and what this race looks like.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I did something on it last year, Simone, and I think I don't remember exactly, but I think it's like maybe one player has been Mr. Football whose team did not make the playoffs, and maybe one other one whose team lost in the first round. I mean, generally speaking, you need to play deep in the playoffs to be Mr. Football. We saw that with JaQuincy McKinstry. I think that would have been a lot tighter race last year had Connor Harrell played in the second half of their game, and I think he is the leading candidate. The question is whether he can come back and play in the playoffs. We'll find out maybe more about his status.
What is his status? What do we know about that?
I think he's injured. I'm not exactly sure the extent of his injury. I've heard that he's probably going to be out this week, but maybe could come back in the second round of the playoffs, which would be good because if they get back to a Hoover matchup, they could have him on the field. Yeah. But they've had a week off since that Hoover game, so Mark Freeman's going to have a plan for quarterback there. They play Florence, which is we'll talk about that going on. Let me move on to my Mr. Football candidates. But in addition to Connor, very seldom has a primary defensive guy won Mr. Football. Now Kool-Aid won last year, and everybody knows him as a defensive back. That's what he is at Alabama. That's what he was. But he also played a lot of offense for Pinson Valley when they won it. I wonder if Jeremiah Alexander, the Alabama commit, the top recruit in the state, could he be the first defensive guy in a long time to win this award? If he shows out for 4 games and they win the championship, I think he's in the running. A guy that we haven't talked a lot about is the Louisville commit, Caleb Johnson from Clay Chalkville. His team's number 1 in the state in Class 6A. They've been just dominant. If they win the state championship, I think he's in the mix. The guy we had on our show last week. What about Bennett Meredith? Yeah. He beat Thompson a couple of weeks ago, committed to Northwestern. We had him on last week. Very good kid, very cool kid. If you haven't listened to that interview, go back and listen to it. It was really good. Caleb Nix, his brother won Mr. Football a couple of years ago, but Caleb's been kind of quietly unbelievable this year. I mean, last week he was 15-19 with 4 touchdown passes in the first half against Oxford. If they get to the championship game, he could be a contender. And I think Nick mentioned Emmanuel Henderson, who's been great for Geneva County, the Alabama running back commit. The problem with him is, they play a tough first round game, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. And if you lose in the first round, I'm not sure you can get there. Sure. And then Kobe Prentice is another guy, the Alabama wide receiver commit from Calera. But again, he's got a tough first round game. So I think when we get to maybe the quarterfinals, we'll know a little bit more. We might be able to kind of hone in a little bit more on the serious contenders. But I think it's wide open right now, especially if Connor is limited or can't come back.
Certainly sounds like it. Seems like the playoffs will kind of help divide guys up. We'll see who makes a deep run. You never really know. This time of year, it's kind of a new season for everybody. Injuries play a role. We'll see who actually makes it 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in, 5 weeks in. Obviously, the state championship games are the first week of December in Birmingham. If you're just tuned in, it's AL.com Recruiting, brought to you by Southern Orthopedic Surgeons. He's Ben Thomas. I'm Simone Eli. We're going to talk about some key round 1 matchups. A lot of Bama guys in action this week, helping their team to the playoffs, now looking to extend their season into the second round. And we're going to start with that 2A matchup, Ben, that you just brought up. Emmanuel Henderson, the Bama running back commit, taking on Lynette and Caden Story, who is an Auburn defensive lineman. Ben, this is a really big matchup here. Something's got to give in this one.
Yeah, so what we decided to do this week, Simone, we kind of had in our past shows, we've kind of had key matchups at the end. Yeah. And as I looked at the playoff matchups, I just thought it'd be interesting to spotlight, some key guys, some recruits that are coming up. And you can see the first round pairings on AL.com. We have them all statewide. There's a couple games on Thursdays, but most of them are on Friday. And this game, the interesting thing about this game is that matchup. I mean, you got the Alabama running back commit, Emmanuel Henderson, who's been great. I mean, he's had multiple 200-yard games, but they're just 5-5. And the problem is they're going to a very good Lynette team, which is 8-2. Caden Story has also had a great year. Their 2 losses have been to schools that were bigger than them. I think they're number 1 team in the state now as of the Sports Writers rankings, which just came out this morning in Class 2A. So I think this is a tough road for Geneva County going up to Lynette to win. But, these are 2 guys that we're going to see on the opposite side of the Iron Bowl rivalry maybe as soon as next year. So I think it'll obviously garner a lot of attention. So I think that's the first matchup that really jumped out at me when I looked at the overall playoff pairings.
Yeah, Caden Story's brother, obviously Christian Story over there at Alabama as well. All right, big 6A matchup. You just mentioned Kobe Prentice, who is a super talented guy for Calera, has really taken Calera to the next level throughout this season. Potential Mr. Football candidate. You get this big win against Spanish Fort. We're talking about a guy who is probably going to bump himself up in those rankings a little bit, but this is going to be a tough one for Calera, Ben.
Yeah, it is. But this guy's been great, Simone. Kobe Prentice. He has, I can't remember exact number of receptions, but he's got over 1,000 yards receiving and 18 touchdowns this year. I think Calera has 24 passing touchdowns, and Kobe's got 18 of them. I mean, he is their offense. Very few people have slowed him down. Yeah. I don't know whether Spanish Fort can do that or not. They're certainly the favorite here, but they're probably, Calera will probably need to find some more alternatives to be able to keep up with Spanish Fort. But I just think it's a good matchup. Spanish Fort's one of the top teams in the state. They played in the last 2 state championship games. They had to try and defend Kool-Aid last year in the 6A title game, and he ended up catching the go-ahead touchdown pass against them. So I think it's a great matchup. Key note about Spanish Fort here, Simone, they have never lost a first or second round playoff game, 26-0. Wow. Spanish Fort is. Of course, they hadn't been around that long, but they've won 4 state championships already, but 26-0 Spanish Fort in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. So Kobe and the guys have kind of an uphill battle there, but I think it is an intriguing matchup.
No doubt about that. That game will be on the hill in Spanish Fort on Friday night. In 7A, Ben, a 2023 guy in Jaleel Hurley, who's been pretty impressive so far for Florence. Obviously, this is a tough battle when you're taking on Thompson in round 1, but a huge opportunity here.
Yeah, this is a guy we're going to talk about a lot next year, Simone, Jaleel Hurley. Great player. He's probably the top 5 player in the state of Alabama as a junior. Plays a lot of different positions there for Florence. Hasn't committed yet, but getting offers from everywhere. I think he narrowed it down to a top 8, if I'm not mistaken, maybe just this week. And I believe that included Alabama and Auburn. And, of course, he gets a chance to, go against a heavy favorite in Thompson. Ryan Pepins, I just mentioned him because he's just great. I mean, a smaller guy who's committed to Western Kentucky. Yeah. I'm not sure. I still think some people may come in and offer him, Simone. He's a small receiver, but he is impressive. Caught 5 touchdown passes in one game a couple of weeks ago for Thompson. And, of course, again, we had Nick. We said Nick's going to be at this game. He's going to be covering it for AL.com. He's going to be doing some recruiting work outside of that as well. And again, the question is, is Connor Harrell going to play? I don't think he'll play in this game. And if so, if he does not play, how does that Thompson offense look? And, of course, we know the defense is loaded. I still think Thompson wins this game probably pretty easily, but they're going to need Connor going forward. And this is a good proving ground for Jaleel Hurley. I mean, I think college scouts, Simone, look at these playoff games because they know it's a step up in most times in competition. So I think, teams perform well. Not only could they, recruits perform well, not only can they get themselves in the Mr. Football race, but they can get the interest of college coaches as well, increased interest.
Yeah, that's definitely something that high school players have to deal with when they go into their senior year. Either they're still undecided or looking to make a decision, going to the playoffs, having to try to balance that, and obviously the early signing period now in December. It's just a lot. It's a lot for guys, but it's part of it when you're a top caliber athlete. And speaking of that, a lot of recruiting news throughout the state when it comes to decommitments, new offers, guys visiting places, the whole 9 yards, and a big-time storyline over there with Saraland, Ben, going into this playoff week. And the Spartans, obviously, the number 1 seed down here in the region of 6A Region 1. So a lot going on trying to move forward, but a big decommitment there for the Spartans as well.
Yeah, Trayvon McAlpine decommitted from TCU. Obviously, Gary Patterson was fired, let go this past weekend, and I'm sure that had something to do with that. I hadn't talked to Trayvon, but this is, in my mind, one of the more underrated guys in the state. I mean, he is unbelievable on the defensive line. I think he could be an asset. I don't know if Auburn might come in there and get, maybe recruit him, but he is, the TCU coaches, at least some of them, were at a Saraland game earlier this year and told, Randy Kennedy, who we've had on the show, that Trayvon was their number 1 guy in their class, and they expected him to be an NFL draft choice in a couple of years. So he is a dominant player for Saraland, another guy that, just like we were just talking about, he can gain a lot of attention, if the Spartans have a good playoff run, and because he's going to be, he's going to stick out no matter what game you go to. So be certainly intriguing to see where he may end up, senior, who I think can play at any Power 5 school. He's that good.
No doubt about that. Moving on to a guy that we had on last week. I'm a huge fan, Bennett Meredith, the Hoover quarterback who just committed to Northwestern. The offers keep rolling in. Sometimes that happens, especially when guys make a decision. You start to see more offers, more attention. This is the case right now for Bennett Meredith.
Yeah, he texted me Friday night, Simone, and said, hey, I got an Arizona State offer. So, like you said, people, sometimes when that first big offer comes, it kind of opens the floodgates, and that's probably what's going to happen for Bennett, especially if he continues to impress in the playoffs. He's committed to Northwestern. We talked to him last week. It didn't sound like he had any doubts about it. He loves that campus, and we have a pipeline kind of Alabama people going to Northwestern at this point, including Evan Smith, his rival there at Oak Mountain in Region 3. So I don't know if this Arizona State offer will sway him at all, but it could lead to even more offers down the pipe, and good for him. I mean, good kid, good player. He's had a great year for Hoover.
Sticking with the quarterback position, Christopher Vizina over there at Briarwood, you've said a lot of positive things about him, Ben, from your all's discussion. I did a story on him a couple of weeks ago, but visited Auburn this past week, and this guy's getting a ton of attention. He has 21 offers from what I saw online.
Yeah, top guy. I did a story on him a couple of weeks ago. Top guy in the state for 2023. I think I jinxed him because I did a big story on him, and I think they lost to Mountain Brook 14-0 the next week. But it hadn't jinxed his offers. Like you said, he visited Auburn last week. I think really Auburn's in with him. He got an Indiana offer this week. I think he's got a Notre Dame offer among those 21 offers. So this is going to be a big time kid. Seems like some of that. It's amazing how many in the last couple of years, how many Birmingham quarterbacks there have been in that area. This year we got Connor Harrell, we got Caleb Johnson, we have Bennett, Tanner Bailey from just outside in Gordo. And then last year we had, crew as well. So they just keep producing them, but this guy's right there with him. He's going to be one of the top recruits in the state, maybe one of the top quarterbacks in the nation next year.
It's been very impressive to watch him play. All right. A few weeks ago, we spoke with Auburn high school head coach Keith Etheridge, and Braden Joyner is a name that he brought up multiple times. It's a guy that he feels very strongly about, talent-wise, what he can do. Just picked up a huge offer this week, Ben. We've seen a lot of Auburn high school guys make their decision and pledge to Auburn University.
Yeah, so he got that official offer. This is the guy, he was at Oxford last year with Coach Etheridge. When Coach Etheridge got the Auburn job, he and his family moved to Auburn. He's played a lot of defensive line this year for Auburn. I think he's probably an offensive lineman in college, but he's only a junior, still got another year to go. So his teammates, Drew Bobo and Eston Harris, the offensive lineman committed already to Auburn. Of course, Powell Gordon's been a long time Auburn commit. So we'll see what happens with Braden. But you're right, Coach Etheridge has bragged about him for a while, and I think he's going to continue to get more offers. We'll see if he's close to making any decision or if he's going to wait for a while.
Yeah. One school that we've talked about, it feels like week in and week out, is Pike Road. They're producing a ton of talent, and not only for this coming year, but in the class of 2023 as well, Ben.
Yeah, their big offensive lineman, Vyson Lane, got a Notre Dame offer this week. Notre Dame's come. I've seen their name a lot in our state, which is interesting. I can't think of the last guy we've had go to Notre Dame. I'm sure we've had some, but this is a big offensive tackle.
The punter quarterback over there, wasn't that from ACA? I thought he went to Notre Dame.
Maybe so, but Vyson Lang is a big offensive tackle, and he's going to get a lot of offers. They also got a freshman running back up at Pike Road, Anthony Rogers, who's a name to watch in the future. They have Quinshawn Junkins right now, who we had on our show, committed on our show to Ole Miss, and they already have the next guy in the pipeline, and Anthony Rogers. So they're going to continue to produce big-time talent, the number one team in Class 5A.
I take it back. He was at Hillcrest Tuscaloosa. I can't remember the kid's name, but he was like punter quarterback kid. He went to Notre Dame, but we'll see. All right, guys. One guy we've also discussed quite a bit is Robert Woodyard, the Williamson linebacker who has been committed to Alabama for a very long time, is out for the remainder of the season due to a meniscus tear that he suffered a few weeks ago against Jackson. I'm pretty sure that he had surgery, Ben. I know we talked about that the other day. Any update on that? And then, of course, on the most recent news with Woodyard. Yeah,
I haven't had any update on his surgery, but his coach did tell us, I think, on Monday a week ago that he was going to have surgery that next Tuesday. So hopefully that went well. But yeah, he's on the high school Butkus semifinal list. There's 16 nationwide linebackers on that list. He's one of them. So congratulations to him. With him not playing the last couple of games, probably a long shot for him to win it, but that recognition is pretty special. Something else I'm looking forward to in the playoffs. Interested to see if Shamar James, speaking of talented linebackers, comes back. He's missed the last 2 games for Faith Academy, former Florida commit, Alabama, Georgia, in on it with him, or at least thought to be in on it with him. He's said he had a mild ankle sprain. I think there may be a chance he gets back for the playoffs. So I hope we see him on the field this week.
All right, good stuff. And because we have a fantastic producer behind the scenes, Patrick Greenfield, he let me know that it was Jay Bramblett from Hillcrest, Tuscaloosa, is the most recent Notre Dame commit from in-state that I can at least remember. I'm pretty sure that was like a year ago. So, Ben, I was just trying to put some knowledge on you, but I couldn't remember the kid's name. Anyways, a lot of good information, a lot of things to discuss this week, guys. Lots of recruiting news. But the biggest thing is that it's week 1 of the high school football playoffs. I cannot believe that we're already here. It's November. Ben, what game will you be at Friday?
Simone, it's a funny thing. I do my Friday work from the house, as you know, so I'll be covering them all, kind of, so to speak. We'll have our Football High Live up and going about 6:30. You can follow all the action from across the state. We'll have the pairings for next week when it all ends. And I might actually get to see some games, like at least at the Super 7, maybe in the semifinals. Who knows?
Yeah. With your own 2 eyes, so you can be a real recruiting reporter.
Or my own 4 eyes, as the case may be.
No doubt. Any game that stands out to you the most when it comes to maybe a potential upset brewing in round 1?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I don't. I look at Enterprise and Fairhope maybe as a potential upset. I mean, I think Fairhope's the number 1 seed. Enterprise comes in as the number 4 seed, but they've lost 3 close games to Central Phoenix City and Auburn and Jeff Davis, I believe. I think that could be a potential upset, although I like what Tim Carter and Fairhope are doing. That's going to be 2 good running teams. So I think that's interesting to see. Prattville and Theodore may be interesting. I still like Theodore at home, but those 2 teams have played in the playoffs recently. And Kirsten Rogers is another talented running back there at Theodore, so we'll see what happens there.
All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in to AL.com Recruiting, show number 28. Want to say thanks again to Nick Alvarez, the new recruiting reporter for Alabama and Auburn with AL.com. Looking forward to his work. Appreciate Patrick Greenfield behind the scenes, our producer, doing all the things. All the graphics are fantastic. Ben Thomas. Appreciate your input and all the things. And I'm Simone Eli. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. AL.com Recruiting brought to you by Southern Orthopedic Surgeons. We will see y'all next week, but enjoy Friday's first round of the high school football playoffs.